Where Naruto once desperately pleaded with Sasuke to return to the leaf, it is now Sasuke desperately pleading with Naruto to allow him to cut him down. Yet both smile as they refuse these selfish requests, and instead come to an answer of compromise. Where Sasuke's compromise once ended with acknowledgement, Naruto's compromise must end with understanding. He can't give up on the world, can't give up on Shinobi, and can't give up on Sasuke, because all of these convictions will lead him to Hokage. Sasuke would cast away the world's past, because it was that past that blessed Sasuke with combative gifts, only to watch idly as he suffered from them. The same with Naruto, the only difference being that burden has found union with him through reconciliation. Reconciliation that was only achieved by facing his past. And here, after Sasuke fails to take down Naruto with sheer might, he is forced to remember his own, forced to reconcile with a past where he used his gifts in all the wrong ways. It is not Naruto's equal force that cures Sasuke's ailment of power, his genetic burden, but Naruto's abilities when he's at his physically weakest state. Abilities called tenacity, perseverance, endurance, understanding. 2 men, a fraction of their power lost by the end of this battle, yet coming away from this conflict greater shinobi still. Connections are easy to form, but hard to sever. If love will inevitably lead to loss, pain, hatred, and despair, then all the more reason to embrace the cycle, because it doesn't necessarily end there. If one is on the brink of destruction, the only path forward is reconstruction. And on this road of salvation, new connections form, and love is reclaimed. Enlightenment is sought not through detachment by severing stubborn bonds that will inevitably lead to pain, but by accepting the balance that governs human emotion, embracing both the positives and negatives that shape the world. When Sasuke explains cooperation was only achieved because of a common enemy, he disregards the new connections that cooperation brought about. Power has hurt and blinded him, but the things he placed in front of him propelled him forward despite that. He stayed in motion, where Orochimaru succumbed to the paralysis of death. It is Sasuke's continuous shifts that dictate Orochimaru's demise and revival, so the snake would observe where the hawk descends. This new answer sparks cooperation in an old foe, and its destination would lead to more cooperative peace in the future. Like Naruto, Sasuke had begun to unveil his own form of resolution. It would lead him to the same battlefield as his rival, enlighten another soul who observes him intently, help in washing away 3 masses of darkness, and foster a conclusion that showcases where Naruto's rise leads.
そうか。それなら、見せてくれ。
Entrusted to be the savior of the world, and, on the opposite spectrum, entrusted to be a forthright Uchiha. Where Naruto would falter time and time again with what he inherited, Sasuke would stay consistently resolute. After all, unlike his rival, he had seen the ones who entrusted him with the future of the Uchiha clan. He witnessed many times that this future would rest on the back of his older brother, but despite that reality constantly being affirmed, Sasuke wanted that privilege for himself. His father, holding the reins of that position, favored Itachi, and Sasuke, being young, envious, and naive, struggled to obtain the same status in his father's eyes. But Even in the beginning of this long road, this goal, in of itself, would become a facade, for Itachi was only a candidate in ability. The rest was his own solo venture. Sasuke, wanting to achieve leadership in his clan by matching against and eventually eclipsing his kind older brother, receives a dose of reality in the form of a manipulative poison given to him by a ruthless man he didn't know. His brother Itachi, his goal, the very symbol of the Uchiha, he becomes distorted. What Sasuke rivaled against was never there in the first place. All he loved gone, his future robbed from him. But beyond this darkness was even more despair, for this hell trickled down. Itachi willingly robbed himself of everything before doing the same to his brother, and selfishly steered him toward a new ambition, a hollow replacement for what Sasuke had before. Itachi would still be his goal, but this time it was all for a purpose someone else instilled in him. Itachi stripped Sasuke of everything and placed him in the palm of his hand. No matter what new light revealed itself to Sasuke, this shadow would remain attached, and Itachi needed this darkness to remain profound, for his new goal was to die by his brother's hands. Guilt and manipulation twisted together to force a path of revenge. This is the origin of Sasuke, starting with the Uchiha and ending with Itachi. No matter what is lurking behind him, though, his root remains constant. No matter how shrouded in darkness Sasuke becomes, it's all coming from his inner feelings. His love for his family, his love for his clan, and, slowly but surely, his love for his comrades. Itachi could never hinder this process as long as Sasuke was close to them. Behind an aloof gaze are thoughts constantly ruminating about his loss, and how to never lose it again. It's these thoughts that manifest outwardly with action more and more. It transforms Sakura from a girl with a naive perspective about the cute boy in class to a kunoichi who loves the man who would sacrifice himself for those he holds dear. It transforms Naruto from a boy with a hollow purpose to a man who understands why he walks on the road he chose. What Sasuke illuminates for these two is invaluable, but, ironically, the light expelling from him could never reach his own eyes. Any chance he receives is always foiled by circumstance or manipulation. And the first instance of this comes in his first real mission. Sasuke sacrifices his future for the life in front of him. In the heat of battle, with an impossible ultimatum, he doesn't even pause to consider how much more valuable his life is compared to the loser who has yet to know why he fights. Naruto was exposed to a glimpse of purpose with Haku's words, but Sasuke's action contextualizes everything. It's not the first time someone's done this for Naruto, and they would not be the last. If one cannot find purpose in war, then naturally, they should find meaning in camaraderie, or else become a rabid dog. A vow to protect those around you until your final breath. It's an ideal their sensei displayed faith in, and one Sasuke commits to here. He shows humanity, but this process ultimately earns him nothing. Because unlike Naruto, he never gets to witness the end of these means. He never has the privilege to see his enemy unmasked. Haku dies performing the same action as Sasuke, and, even before this, his true face revealed the burden of all the power he acquired in life. This power is special only when he uses it for Zabuza, otherwise it's just a curse. The lives of these two scarred ninja unmasks the shinobi condition and reveals it all ultimately manifests from human emotion. The ideal shinobi is supposed to be an emotionless tool, but it's because of Haku's immense feelings for Zabuza that he's able to perform his duty as a tool till his last breath. And it's because of Zabuza's feelings for Haku that he's able to see the facade in his way of life. Humans can never cut away their emotions, no matter their history, the wounds they carry, or their depravity. They can never find a blade sharp enough to sever the weight of the past. Sasuke would eventually try to be the very sword that does this for the world, but perhaps if he'd had the luxury of witnessing the end of two similarly cursed men, he might have understood something he would later not. The world never gave him a chance to see a correct path, at least one without distortion, so inevitably he would avert his eyes from it entirely. And the cycle continues, a showcase of overwhelming force in the form of solitude. Yet, Sasuke never gets to witness the transition offering so much more, not until it's too late. A wavering journey that gets stamped out by the man who forced poison down his throat. Don't you remember? Comrades are for but one purpose: to nurture a bond so it can be severed. Thus, power is obtained. Power from pain. Power to kill me. This is the new mantra that ruminates in Sasuke's mind, a voice resonating not from his core values, but from the shadow Itachi attached years ago. He had been constantly battling it so it wouldn't consume him, but from his vantage, this struggle only held him back. So, he decides to break free, to be ensnared by his indecisiveness no longer. Instead of teetering between two paths, he would commit to isolation. A painful sacrifice, sure, but it's far better than sacrificing nothing only to be stuck between crossroads. His rival has found immense success in conforming to one resolute path, so Sasuke emulates that strength, and in effect, receives power even greater. The end of his road is clear, after all, where Naruto has yet to consider what kind of Hokage he will be. Yet, just like his friend, Sasuke lacks something fundamental to reach his desired destination. No matter how cumbersome the shadow veiling him becomes, it can't pierce his core. No matter Itachi's words, Sasuke will always remain Sasuke. Naruto fails to retrieve his friend, and Sasuke fails to sever the past as a sacrifice for power. Naruto can't achieve his goal because he has a gap to fill, where Sasuke would have to fundamentally change himself to reach the conclusion of solitude. One goal feasible, the other impossible. And this would be the last time Sasuke looks at and acknowledges a foe for a long, long time. His reunion with Naruto, although Sasuke once conceded ground to him, it doesn't seem to have mattered. If anything, Naruto's pathetic display is below that of what he demonstrated in the final valley. He didn't understand then, and still doesn't understand now. Nothing has changed. Sasuke's acknowledgement didn't make a shred of difference. But what he doesn't know, though, is that this is only because the man he looked at then had yet to develop the necessary tools to reciprocate. Mutual understanding isn't necessarily an impossibility. Sasuke sees a withered ghost of the past, so he decides to look through him. Literally. To the source of his power. Not only is it shrouded in darkness surpassing his own, but it's an aura threatening unimaginable depth. All of it found at his rival's core. This malice-ridden beast is Naruto's power. How rich for the man who once preached about Sasuke's incorrect path to be reliant on this massive dark energy while storming his own. His words have lost any weight, so Sasuke strips them away. He leaves his former comrade distraught and wears an expression of vindication. Outmaneuvering Orochimaru, blitzing through Deidara, Sasuke finds himself in a similar scenario as his former self. 3 others he can rely on to support him. His humanity still intact, but the goal closer than ever before. When the past knocks at his door, he shatters it and moves on without so much as a glance. An enhanced vision, looking through a tube Itachi created, one that was always going to backfire. Sasuke would inevitably point his tunneled vision somewhere else after his older brother. The ultimate plan was doomed to fail. He stays true to his task when given an ultimatum. Together with them, or against him solo, Sasuke defaults to the shadow entangling him and stands before the object of his hatred alone. He's grown confident in his eyes, one's unpolluted by weighty power like the man before him. But this confidence is his bane. He has pride in abilities that only hurt him, that are only available to him because he's been damaged so much. Yet he immerses himself in the same carnage that defined his clan's greatest blight. He wears the Uchiha's pride on his back, and wears their sins likewise. Itachi detached from it all long ago, but this doesn't necessarily make him better. After all, he is blind to how fruitless his ambition is, just like the one he manipulates. Love versus apathy, hatred versus love. They both have 2 sides, one that they show to each other, and one that they keep close to themselves, hidden away. Had Itachi only shown the love he veils, this battle between brothers wouldn't need to happen. If only people were able to show their guts before war, then bloodshed might be deterred. Itachi is wrong, and his incorrect actions have steered Sasuke into being invalid as well. Even if they share the same blood, they can't see the heart that pumps it. They can't see each other for what they really are. This is why Sasuke would later regret his actions, and Itachi would later regret underestimating his brother's love. It is that love that got Sasuke here, and it is love that will contort him further after this farcical deathmatch. They both overestimate what they can see, both underestimate the depth of their opponent's psyche, and both plaster on satisfied smiles that later prove to be as meaningless as the fight that summoned them. And a new shadow spawns. More manipulation striking at Sasuke's core. Obito knows how to do it so well because the same was done to him. Thus, the cycle continues. Know their pain, and you can either understand it or exploit it. Knowing something isn't the same as understanding it, but knowing is enough to exploit. And so, the chasm becomes a rift. The truth with a sprinkle of lies, all told in a precise way to lead an Uchiha brethren to the same cursed fate that defines their crest. But this too is a mere microcosm of shinobi as a whole. Their blight isn't different, only exaggerated. Sasuke learns to love Itachi again. Yet, just like what started this dim route, this love transforms into hatred. Hatred for his brother because he robbed him of everything. Hatred for the leaf because they robbed him of his brother. The home that obscured a life in the shadows was the shadow all along. Itachi could seamlessly infiltrate it on that day because they were one and the same. Both had dark secrets. Both hurt Sasuke. And now that hurt has become a gaping wound, threatening to drown not just the leaf in Sasuke's blood, but the world if they are to obstruct him. He didn't arrive at the world's nexus alone. Paralleling his actions before with Itachi, with his target being so close, he shakes his team off. The reason why, between then and now, is all the difference. He needed to face Itachi alone then. Now, he doesn't need a tool that can't keep up. Where before they were comrades, equally sharing Sasuke's burden with him, to which he acknowledged, now he subjects them to the shinobi condition. If the tool's blunt, who cares? They're just tools, after all, and a new tool can always be acquired. Maybe, just maybe, if he could have seen the conclusion to this mentality all those years ago with his own eyes, the image of two scarred faces would penetrate his abyss. But he never saw how they died. He never saw why they died. All he saw was the thing he knew all too well: death. And that is why he's here at the Nexus, to wreak more death. It was done to him. Now he will do the same. On and on until he breaks. For that is what an Avenger is. This light is only blinding, the words echoing in it only a faint ring, because the emission and reverberation come from false means. Sasuke needed someone to save him when he was a child, needed someone to save him then, and needs someone to save him now. But neither of the men who stood before him wanted to do that, and the man who stands before him now can't. Sasuke radiates so much darkness, and Naruto so much light. It's almost sickening how diametrical they are. On the surface, Sasuke is only this depraved because he loves so much. He has so much light in him that has been obscured, forced to be there only to cast a horrific shadow. And not by his will, but first by his, now by his. Sasuke uses his comrades, and he's been used all the same. The manipulated learns from the manipulators, a tool wielding tools, all to pierce what buried his luminescence. One gravedigger gone, but one isn't enough. It's never enough to make up for all that lost light. His rival can't understand the depth of his pain because he hasn't even acknowledged his own. His core. These two aren't so unalike. Smothered beneath Naruto's radiance is a dark hole that mirrors Sasuke's outward gloom. They aren't diametrical, but perfectly harmonized. A center of black, but a shell of white. A center of white, but a shell of black. Yin and yang. Perhaps this is why they, for a moment, achieve Ninshu. For the world does not abide by pure benevolence, but balance. As scarred as they both are, as wrong as they both are, their clash has still managed to foster a fraction of union. A moment of peace spawns from tense conflict. But unlike yin and yang, the two halves lack the conjoining thread. True harmony is only found when the two parts can function as one. And when this happens, there is no longer simply positive and negative, but one symbol that defines it all. How they can do this? The missing thread? It's the acknowledgement of their cores. Leaving a lone trail separate from the many, the lost comrade finds himself at a crossroads. The initiator, Itachi, where the final battle in his previous life was a farcical deathmatch against Sasuke. The final battle in his life's second chance pairs him with his younger brother, and they face down a man that shares their greatest shortcoming. It took Itachi another life to understand, but the foe in front of him and the sibling next to him haven't. They have yet to acknowledge themselves. Even after Itachi conveys where the power in his trump card jutsu lies, Sasuke looks through the moral. He can only see Itachi, what he was back then, what he did. He can't see the Itachi right in front of him, the one who exudes regret for not acknowledging what he was, the one who defeats his foe by forcing him to look at himself. Kabuto could only see the amalgamation of power he could be, severing the part that made him an individual. As a consequence, he believed his true heart died with her, but it's still alive out there, somewhere, ready to be discovered. He couldn't find it, though, because what found him first was manipulation, and he embraces the tool he becomes, all until he's of no further use. Now that there's nothing to serve, he becomes a false master, attempting to surpass a lord of emptiness. Vapid power. Power for the sake of movement. Movement without a destination. The wind Orochimaru yearned to be would never attribute to anything, because it lacked a reason to blow. Kabuto doesn't examine the fundamentals of his master's ninja way. If he did, he wouldn't have attempted to pursue the same fruitless path. He instead replicates Orochimaru's means, and becomes obsessed with surpassing him. Someone else's debt of an ambition, with Kabuto's consciousness nowhere in sight. Orochimaru used him, and he becomes wrapped up in darkness, incapable of acknowledging himself. Just like Sasuke, manipulated by Obito, becoming his tool, sinking deeper into an abyss all the while. He can't acknowledge himself, and he can't acknowledge Kabuto as the same. But Itachi helps Sasuke find a semblance of clarity with the truth he always needed, and he shares his love that resonates with Sasuke's core. Ah, yes, he remembers what it feels like to love, to be loved. He'd only immersed himself in the opposite for so long. Hatred gave him false comfort, but the reunion of love gives Sasuke an intriguing discomfort. He's reminded of why he started this tainted path, and it all traces back to Shinobi. He can see himself again, one man among the cursed many. Why did Itachi suffer? Why did his clan suffer? Why does he suffer? Hatred alone never got him this close to seeing what started Uchiha Sasuke, what is buried somewhere beneath his shell. For the first time in a long time, Sasuke looks beyond himself. He broadens his scope. And all it ever took were genuine words to ignite this development. No harm, no trauma, no manipulation. Only the truth and love. A small helping hand shows itself to Sasuke, and he takes full advantage of its insight. And these insightful questions lead to an old enemy. Sasuke displays his keener eyes by exposing the depth of Orochimaru's actions. There was another reason for his obsession with the leaf's destruction. And, like his former student, he might have yearned to see it burn down for the wound it gave him. Rejecting his way, denying him the seat he deserved. The will of fire did not burn bright enough to ensure anyone's survival, even children. So, he chose a solution that would, but the process consumed him, turning an understandable path into a twisted obsession. He rejected the way of his peers, and they in turn rejected his. There couldn't be no animosity after all that. Orochimaru might have deluded himself into thinking his plan was a mere whim, but Sasuke has experienced enough to know better. No matter how monstrous Orochimaru becomes, he's still fundamentally human. Animosity isn't something that can just be shaken off. Sasuke knows this better than anyone. He's begun to look at others, to acknowledge the essence of a person veiled by their thick exteriors, much like Naruto. But, unlike his rival, he has yet to do the same for himself. And this gap will remain until the final battle, one that takes place on top of history, a history of perpetual conflict. Sasuke seeks dialogue from one of the men who laid out the framework for the current era's conflict. But instead of an explanation, he receives a story, one all too familiar. A tale of two friends who try and fail to form a connection, only to become enemies engaged in mortal combat. Their attempt at union created a foundation for the future, but it also spawns a calamity that now threatens to destroy it all. The dream of a future is usurped by the dream of a far future. That childish ambition nests in futility. Other lands simply built their own unified sectors and labeled the other villages enemies. Battles between clans became great wars between nations, and children would still be forced to become adult killers. One of these young victims claims the name Madara and walks through the world to create a new one. The real Madara certainly created the circumstances, but they were only made possible because of the era's climate. Nothing changed. The scale just became larger. Hashirama could see the future of the village, but as Madara asserts when they were kids, his eyes are better. He saw beyond the settlement they built, and what it meant for peace. And Madara only confirms Hashirama's short-sightedness in their final battle, defaulting to the safety of the village overall, regardless of the darkness that may fester as a result. It is this same ideology that shaped his successor, molded Danzo, afflicted Hiruzen, forced Itachi's hand, and damned Sasuke. The past's voyage to reach the light has cast an overbearing shadow on the present. The pieces fall in place. Sasuke has his answer, and it's an answer destiny predicts, because it leads him to the other half of his fate. Now, the prophecy would be put to the test. One god, seeking stability, split into light and shadow, and it is these two polar opposites operating together that gives rise to all things in the universe. Madara's interpretation versus Hagoromo's hope. The previous god sought stability through Ninshu, but Ninshu was forgotten long ago. Some, though, recall its remnants. Sasuke did in the Final Valley, and he and Naruto achieved a semblance of it during the Kage Summit. It isn't gone. Hard to see maybe, but as long as chakra exists, there's always a potential for deeper understanding between people. Where before it was a direct link, now it's something more complicated. But just because something's harder to grasp doesn't mean it's futile. While Ninshu might have helped connections and bypassed conflict, Ninjutsu has proven its potential to lead to the same resolution. Only the depth is far greater. Conflict showcases things peace could never. Ninjutsu breeds conflict, but peace always precedes conflict. With the transition from conflict to peace, a far more well-rounded comprehension spawns. One knows an entirely different side of a person through war, and this knowledge will breed contempt, anger, pain, and hatred. But if endured, the preceding understanding becomes that much more expansive. Ninjutsu brought with it catastrophe, but it also forged far greater potential than Ninshu ever posed. Madara rejects the blighted world that strayed away from Ninshu, yet he takes pride in his level of ninjutsu, claiming the power he wields is his and his alone. When he would later reveal chakra came from a foreign source, longing to end conflict, yet reveling in shinobi battles all the same. He rejects chakra, yet he festers in the spoiled power until his is the greatest, in order to rid it from everyone else. Madara and Madara alone would be in possession of chakra, an aspiration that led to the downfall of the rabbit goddess, and he would use it to connect everyone in one dream. Surprisingly similar to Hagoromo's failed ambition, Ninshu for everyone to seamlessly connect with all. But true understanding is not that simple. There are no shortcuts on this path. That phrase sounds familiar, doesn't it? Madara essentially wants to create yet another shortcut. While Hagoromo was blind to what his path was, Madara willingly embraces his farcical peace. And it's no wonder, for he lost his ability to empathize long ago. After his siblings perished, after his clan turned their back on him, he was alone. The perfect scenario for darkness to fester and dark plans to seep out. It was inevitable the world would curse him, for it curses everyone living in it. The only way to save it, the only way to stabilize the incessant rumbling, is to have both light and shadow. But since Madara had forgotten cooperation after loss and betrayal, he interpreted the two sides to come from only one. If he is shadow, then he would take in light. He battles it for this purpose. However, his back is taken. The back he was confident he'd never leave open. He planned for his victory. But in his own words, nothing ever goes as planned in this cursed world. So the breaks are commenced, but he forgot how to trust, so he could not entrust. Therefore, he defaults to what he can always count on. He can't trust humans, but he can trust the human condition. He leaves a second Madara to eventually reclaim him. Even when it's not his power alone swinging the pendulum, he maneuvers it like it is. The same self-righteous path Indra stormed, and Madara fools himself into thinking his is different simply because he took in a part of the other brother. The Rinnegan is born, a declaration of godhood, but he still blazes a trail of solitude that yearns to take in everything for himself. He never usurped the fate of the chakra attached to him, even after it left. The one it's attached to now stands against him. This man become farcical god after being wounded by the past, discarding the past, returning from the past, and rescinding his human status, comes face to face with the future, one that was entrusted by a fallen warrior. Guy represents the conclusion to Hashirama's dream. The will of fire burns bright, bright enough to burn enemies, and burn oneself. But those flames also act as nourishing rays that provide energy for another blooming generation. Guy sacrifices his remaining fire to buy time for fresh flames to be fanned. And it is this desperate struggle that allows Naruto and Sasuke to return with opposite infernos. They create a heat wave that would eventually sear away Madara and his dream. He entrusted nothing, instead internalizing everything beneficial into himself. Thus, there's no one he can rely on to back him up except himself. And even one of these shadows betrays him in the end. Madara's path ends with him, while Hashirama's carries on well after his existence fades. A way of shinobi that started with the first Hokage, carried out by Guy, and shows its greatest potential through what his sacrifice allows to blossom. One god of light and shadow versus a man of light and a man of shadow. Time to put the interpretations to the test. The prelude to this clash makes all the difference. Not just Guy's actions, but the actions of the two he carved out a battleground for. Naruto showcased the fruits of acknowledging his past and healing his pain by helping Obito do the same, thereby granting him a second chance and new power. This newfound energy surpassing the previous era. Conceptions about what sacrifice entails? Naruto supersedes them thanks to the time Guy bided for his transcendence. Naruto enables him to continue watching the new blooming generation he helped foster. Sasuke, once blinded by manipulation, can see something in front of him clearly for the first time. He, like the 5 Kages in this war, opts to cooperate against a common enemy, someone whose plan would ruin his new dream. It is by his will the world will change, not Madara's. And this cooperation reminds another of time's effect on stigma. Tobirama was wary of the Uchiha. He was wary of Sasuke because he's an Uchiha, and Sasuke is a victim of his clan's fate. Those who love, those who hate. He fell prey to the same catastrophe that the second conveys. However, unlike Madara, Sasuke chooses to walk with Konoha on the warfront. Despite another Uchiha offering a hand, Sasuke rejects it, and Tobirama no longer sees Madara in him. But Kagami, someone he trusts to pick up the slack, someone he laments when death approaches. Sasuke did not selfishly indulge in vengeance when enlightened. He had every right to, given his clan and Itachi's end. Instead, he works with the man who aided the Uchiha's ostracization, washing away Madara's effect on Tobirama. One man cannot encapsulate a whole community, but Tobirama's fears steered him toward that mindset. He acted in accordance with his love for the village, but it's that love that matures into so much hate in the next generations. His decision mirrors his criticism of the clan he pushed away. They aren't so different after all. Adults are stupid. They should sign treaties if they want to get rid of wars, a phrase Tobirama uttered in adolescence. This reasoning would persist as he matures, ideology rooted in pragmatism. But it doesn't tackle why treaties can't just be signed. Hatred will linger if left unsettled. Scars won't always heal. He disregards the emotional weight of years of strife, and that's how he helped fuel the Uchiha's fire. Tobirama failed to see it during his time. So, he entrusts the future partly to one of the outcasts he helped create, and leads another enlightened soul to aid the one who gave him clarity. It was Sasuke's path that made Itachi acknowledge his failings, which in turn led him to help Kabuto acknowledge himself. And everything comes full circle back to Sasuke. Kabuto's self is restored, and Sasuke's life is restored in turn, with new power to assist his new path of shadow. But it's a different shadow that claims Madara's back once more. He was certain his side embodied him. Obito died and birthed a new Madara. Madara extracted a part of himself and birthed his will incarnate. But Obito never left. He was only lost. He could never be Madara Uchiha. No one can ever be someone else. And Black Zetsu was never what he appeared to be. Madara manipulated Obito, and he in turn is deceived by Black Zetsu. The puppet master is revealed to be just another puppet. Nothing ever goes as planned in this cursed world. He fails for a second time in a second life to heed his own words. He thought his ultimate plan to be an exception because he believed himself to be running the show. But the true director of this play initiates a plot twist that reveals history was acted to awake the sleeping ancient past. A past Black Zetsu attests all resides in her. She of the beginning, the pinnacle of power. Light, shadow, and everything else a part of her. The status Madara spent 2 lifetimes climbing to achieve, Kaguya exudes the presence of a god without even trying. No need to spew vapid words to assert her dominance. What truly talks is the energy she radiates. Yet, despite this devastating aura, she failed once before in taking it all, and she would fail again soon after this revival, just like Madara. If it took 2 demigods to end her reign in the ancient past, it would take at least 5 shinobi to achieve the same result. Careful manipulation versus coordinated cooperation. And Sasuke, ironically now, is on the latter side. His plan is far more synonymous with Kaguya's methodology and nature, rather than the camaraderie he begrudgingly tolerates here. Madara was a relic of the past, and Kaguya a far more distant one. For someone who is soon to initiate a revolt against the past, all he can see are foolish beings stubbornly clinging onto existence, things that should have been erased long ago. Yet, his disgust for their persistence could not be any more hypocritical, because his goal would make him everlasting all the same, controlling the world in his vision by his rules. Even his ambition, when described broadly, sounds all too familiar. But Sasuke cannot see the striking similarities he shares with his foes, because he closed his eyes immediately after opening them. In childhood, they were forced shut, and after that same man prized them open, Sasuke only uses that new sense to confirm the scarred world around him. He understands he is merely one of many cursed souls, and he ends his sightseeing there, closing his eyes by his own will this time. However, there's one thing that remains distinct between Sasuke and the goddess before him: their potential. Kaguya is not human. Fundamentally, she's a creature detached from conventional emotion. Even when she discovers love, it's warped in her own comprehension. The Otsutsuki race are inherently possessive. Their very being is dependent on claiming something foreign and making it a part of themselves, which is consistent with her plan to make everything a part of her once again. But there's a catch. Humanity intervened. Otsutsukis are supposed to take it all and depart without looking back. But Kaguya never even left. She couldn't leave, because she couldn't transform the alien concept of love like she could everything else. It stayed a novel feeling inside her. But this pure human emotion, when paired with Otsutsuki instinct, becomes corrupted. Her possessive nature that resounds throughout her race poisons attachment. She desperately vies to maintain a tight grip on the world because she loves it. She is hurt. Her sons would defy her nature and refuse to be complacent in her toxic infatuation. Kaguya loves Hagoromo and Hamura. She loves the planet. Which is why all the more wrath manifests when the world she spared from destruction revolts against her. Why she emits sorrow when her sons persist to resist through remnants eons later. Kaguya's love can only ever be translated through her Otsutsuki existence. She isn't human, after all. Something can never be something else. Yet Sasuke tries to achieve that same status. Despite being human, the future he envisions for himself is synonymous with an alien from afar, controlling the world with force, becoming an everlasting god above it all. Black Zetsu created a story so Kaguya could rewrite it, and Sasuke yearns to render the past obsolete in the same vein. He can't see how his greatest adversary mirrors everything about the vision of his greatest self. He shut his eyes, after all, so now all he can see is a future of shadow. Naruto, though, rejected that facade. After being told all his life he's a monster, a man conveyed the simple truth. And using that motivation, which initiated a path of redemption, Naruto aids another in finding his true self as well. Uchiha Obito dreamed of Hokage, but died before he could understand what that title meant. But Naruto resurrects Obito from the farcical shell of Madara, and in turn, reveals to him the validity in that forgotten path. Naruto could only illuminate this because he too was enlightened by others, could only save someone from hell because he's experienced it himself. And Obito returns the favor by showcasing the end of this long, arduous road. The ultimate action of a true Hokage, walking in front of the next generation to preserve it, sacrificing his piece on the shogi board to ensure the king survives to bloom new leaders. As all previous Hokage achieved with their demise, Naruto keeps his eyes open through it all. He sees Obito encapsulates everything he has been and will be, and he can see the truth Sasuke's darkness obscures. Despite his attempt to reach an inhuman position, he consistently demonstrates humanity in the battle against Kaguya. It reminds Naruto of the past, and Naruto's presence itself reminds Sasuke of it too. Every time he shows up, it's always like this. He couldn't sever it then, and now he's immersed in it again. Their first lesson as a team. That almost foreign concept to the current Sasuke is seamlessly utilized here. He never forgot, just tried to bury it away. And this instinct from the past earns Team 7 a victory against a goddess. Sasuke wouldn't have a chance to hope for a new future without them. But of course, he can't see that as he is now, for his revolution burns it all out of sight. He looks beyond everything, including his predecessors that he shares so much in common with. He's blind to the value in their end. They finally usurp the fate that tormented their existence. It takes another life, but the destiny bound to them spanned many generations in the first place. After the dust settles, when the carnage is left with a broken world, these two can still smile among the wreckage. War leads to peace. Light can only have presence if shadow exists. They are opposites, but they complement each other all the same. Hashirama and Madara, Naruto and Sasuke. One more generation to finally thread the two opposing sides into one. And all it'll take is for Naruto to showcase the result of his training. A training regimen that started when he learned empathy, matured when he learned endurance, recovered when he learned acceptance, and transcended when he learned the power of unity. And to complete this union, he just needs one more pivotal piece to begin his dream road to mend the broken Team 7. Where before, Naruto selfishly asserted he alone would fight and die with Sasuke, now, with Sakura and Kakashi at his back, he entrusts them to come to his aid when he finishes the task only he can accomplish, with both he and his rival alive. The last time they were here, Sasuke acknowledged Naruto as both his closest friend and equal, but only the former remains. His new path places him above all, including Naruto. Sasuke once said in this spot that his ambition was locked in the past. Now, in the same place, he extrapolates his new goal cemented in the future. What remains consistent, though, are his eyes. They've matured, yes, a representation of all he's been through, but they are fundamentally the same, still closed. It took Itachi realizing his failings after death to pry them open, but his influence was transient. Just like the presence of the moon, his form was never constant, a silhouette lurking under the orb of night, illuminating nothing but bloodshed, swarming Sasuke with the shadows cast by the celestial body above. Then, like a waning crescent moon, he uses his final actions after failure to shed light on the darkness he spawned. Itachi's phases of life display one thing to Sasuke. His older brother failed to be the perfect shinobi because he couldn't maintain a full moon. He could not become its shadow of a tool because there was light he couldn't cut away. That light is Sasuke, his humanity. So Sasuke would do what Itachi could not, sever it all. And, in the process, become a new type of shadow, one created from the luminescence of fire, a fire shadow. In other words, Hokage, an everlasting shadow and an eternal flame of his creation. Sasuke etched Itachi's path of shadow symbolized by the moon on his palm, but now that it's gone, he takes his empty hand and reaches to grasp the future by searing away the past. This is how he will surpass what used to be his goal. This is what he learns from his older brother's failure. However, there's another interpretation of that life, and it comes from the one who donned a sun on his palm. Naruto had a shadow inside him since birth, but the reality was, deeper down still, a root of light persisted stronger than ever. Two suns hovered at his origin. The shadow might have obscured them, but Naruto endured that darkness to finally see the rays of salvation. But it wasn't just those lights. Plenty more came to his aid on this journey to ensure his fire wouldn't extinguish. And now, these comrades have built a bonfire with Naruto at its center, one that can endure any shadow. Fire Shadow, his vision of Hokage. It is this road that scorched the shadow within and transformed it into shielding rays that illuminated the bleak battleground. It is this road that led him to another light that illuminated the first hint of a Hokage's true power. The same man who shaped Sasuke in the darkness was another guiding light for Naruto. His past failure versus his entrusted future of success. Naruto once told Itachi he saw himself as Sasuke's true brother, and to affirm that status, he'd have to do what the sibling veiled in shadow could not: keep those eyes open. A task Itachi entrusted to his younger brother's surrogate brother, and Naruto recalls those words along with others. A fellow shield's declaration. Neji and Sasuke were both lost because of their clan's blight. That darkness weighed them down. But that gravity didn't stop them from moving fast enough to save the same friend. And their closed eyes weren't sewn. Naruto opened Neji's, and Neji entrusted Naruto to do the same for Sasuke. He failed before. But that failure was the best thing that ever happened for his path, because it led him to more failure. And it is when he finally confronted all the failures that he made his first step on this road to Hokage. He's only made it this far because he's been chasing Sasuke. In effect, chasing the world's darkness, confronting it time and time again. And finally, he's grown enough to catch the densest shadow of all. Back then, Sasuke's victory showed Naruto the flaw in his goal. Now, it's time for Naruto to reciprocate. He would win this time, show Sasuke the flaw in his goal, and demonstrate to the world his idea of resolution in the aftermath. Once, a long time ago, Naruto uttered words that are relevant now, but Sasuke didn't hear them. He couldn't hear them. The world never gave him a chance. That scarred beast wore a demon's mask. Despite his outward appearance, that's all it ever was, a mask. He, like all shinobi, could never usurp his core, his human heart. And Sasuke parallels this idea with perfect precision. Is he a god? Can he ever be a god? No. He himself hesitates when he describes where his road would lead him, a dark mass feeding on the ashes of malice so that no one else has to suffer the same. Yet he chokes every step of the way, a wounded demon embracing the shinobi life to thrive, yet constantly looking toward a goal that would place him above the system that weaponizes him. Both are self-inflicted burdens. Both are doomed to fail at the hands of their own humanity. All it took was one weeping boy to show Zabuza his error. Perhaps that's all it would take if Sasuke remembered that flood of emotion now. But it's impossible to remember what he never saw. The world of the past always shielded Sasuke from light, so he embraces a future of shadow. It's the only comfort he's known, after all. Even during the time he felt a different embrace, it was revealed to be suffocating, giving Sasuke a home at Itachi's expense. Everything in the past, created by those who preached of peace, has brought nothing but conflict. Nothing but pain for Sasuke. So why would he follow along the same trail? Why would he listen to a crying world that never listened to his pleas? Why would he listen to Naruto, a proponent of this faulty world? Yet, he does listen. He connects. The one fragment of the world that gives him some reciprocation. It's comforting, and it contradicts this false god. It shows him there's a chance to feel this through others, to connect with them on a mutual basis. That's why he's so desperate to cut it away, because it's the only link to his error. Small though it may be, the inconsistency rattles Sasuke to his core, and it's because of his core that he can't ignore Naruto, someone so unlike him, yet seamlessly links with him at the same time. Two opposites that are perpetually drawn to one another, clash with one another, and gain more resonance with one another as a result. But their differences in acknowledgement deters their unification. Sasuke never had the assistance that introspection requires. Even when he progressed through outside influence on his path, it was either for exploitation or due to trauma. Where Naruto has progressed with the help of others, people who lent a hand solely because they yearned to see him blossom. And so, their final forms represent these diametrical experiences all the same. Naruto's ultimate Kurama, where he cooperates with what was once his inner demon. Sasuke's enhanced Susanoo, achieved by exploiting the tailed beasts, siphoning power from those helpless and trapped creatures. Quite similar to what Kaguya did with the divine tree, the position Madara planned to occupy. Sasuke's end goal and methodology is so alike the foes he defeated, but what's unlike his last enemy is the thing buried beneath that cold gaze. Naruto doesn't flaunt his strength because he knows he only has it thanks to them. Sasuke revels in his Uchiha lineage because that's all he has left of his clan to cling to. Quite ironic, being that he yearns to render those memories irrelevant. His Uchiha power is what separates he and his adversary. It is what makes him the strongest. Sasuke deludes himself into believing he alone is powerful enough to bear everyone's suffering, because he believes he's powerful enough to rid his own. But he hasn't forgotten. He can't forget. He can only avert his eyes from what happened. But even if he looks away, it'll still be there. Even if only peripheral, it will never elude his sight, because it's what shaped him into the man he is now. How can a future built atop a blank space be possible if the one forming it is shaped by the past? How can Sasuke become an everlasting shadow if his center is one of light? His godlike energy that he would use to hover above all, when it trickles out, he's just like anyone else. Feet on the ground, throwing desperate punches to claim victory. But when faced with a man who's acknowledged himself, this kind of battle, he can't hope to win. Sasuke relies on his dojutsu for his trump card, but when that power sizzles out midway, he's countered easily by eyes that are truly open. This time, every step of the way, Naruto is ahead of him. Now it's time for Sasuke to find out why. It's a simple thing, really. With all the complexities that shape a burdened mind, it's the most basic of conveyances that penetrate the deepest. A friend, a connection. What it means to Naruto is an extension of what he learned on the most important day of his life, the beginning of this story. And he uses a semblance of that lesson here. Naruto proved his might, but it's his simple words at the battle's end that make the more profound statement. It's something his opponent tried to forget. Now that Sasuke can't move his body, he makes an effort to move anything. First, his eyelids, then his mind. He recollects on a time when he looked around him. And the most prominent scenery of all, Team 7. Family. It didn't die after that disaster, with pain, hatred, and suffering. Love can always be reclaimed. All it takes is the acknowledgement of one's shattered heart. Then an effort to pick up the pieces with acceptance, an acceptance of all that was done to him and all that he did. Sasuke tried to sever it all, but that is why he's weaker than the one who did not. Because he could never sever everything. Humans can't cut away their heart, no matter how broken it is. Yes, he can see it now. Why Naruto seems so far ahead of him, despite his equivocal power. It's because he is ahead of him. He's already acknowledged his painful past, accepted it, healed his heart on that same road, and come out with his love for the world bolstered as a result. Detachment is a vapid form of enlightenment. It's a shortcut that doesn't require its pursuers to walk alongside the world's struggles. And a true Hokage never takes a shortcut. That's what this dream means to Naruto. Why his vision of Hokage is superior. Sasuke keeps his eyes open to see all of his rival. And, in effect, he sees the world through him as well. The potential for it to experience the same transition Naruto did. But Naruto couldn't do it alone. It took shadows that challenged his light for him to burn brighter. It took other lights supporting him to endure those shadows when their darkness became too heavy. All of it, both good and bad, have led to this moment. All the more beautiful because of the strife that preceded it. Unity born from conflict. A glimpse into the world's potential future. Sasuke accepts this vision, and a new path of healing commences. A road only made possible because he acknowledges the things he tried to ignore. He acknowledges his humanity, acknowledges Naruto, and acknowledges the world. And, in effect, the world finally reciprocates. It shows Sasuke the piece of the equation he left out. The nations did indeed come together to face a common enemy, but it is through that shared experience of war that new connections form. The warring lands become close-knit comrades in arms, those who can share a drink as war buddies. A conclusion Hashirama longed for globally, one he was able to experience with Madara at his second end. And now, through Naruto and Sasuke's union, the dream is actualized. A new era of unprecedented peace spawns from the greatest conflict in history. An equilibrium is reached. Balance wins again. And the loser of that second battle vows to live in this new world with his eyes open this time. Not just retracing the steps he's taken before with awareness, but going everywhere possible to gain even more insight. And that he does, because it is Sasuke's words from his future self that have the privilege to convey the final message of this story. He couldn't have begun this growth without Naruto, couldn't have survived without Sakura, and couldn't have been granted a second chance without Kakashi. Team 7, his surrogate family, enable him to take his first step on a new path of redemption. And Sasuke would return the favor to Kakashi, to Sakura, and to Naruto. Balance persists, Naruto being right, Sasuke being wrong. This too would course correct. Sasuke would eventually hone ideology superior to his rival, enlightening the one who once enlightened him. And so, he beats on, becoming a shadow that assists from afar. But, unlike the Leaf's previous system, Sasuke works closely in tandem with the light. They complement each other, and they achieve so much through their juxtaposed yet cooperative roles. The sage's hope is realized through the two that defy their destiny of conflict. He walks, he sees, he endures. For endurance is what a shinobi needs to thrive. like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And please do share this video if you got a lot out of it. I put my all into this one, so I'm hoping to see it garner some attention, especially because this is the end for me. Well, the end for my Naruto videos anyway. But with every conclusion, new beginnings spawn. New generations are born. I'm done with Naruto for the foreseeable future, but not for the Naruto-verse. There's much to talk about in my next entries. Boruto's up next. If this is your first video you've seen from me, or you're a returning fan that hasn't been here in a while, I have a load of Naruto content that you can indulge in at your leisure over on my channel. A lot of my videos don't even reflect my meager subscriber count, so many of you are sure to have missed at least one video from me at some point. Check it out if you like what you see. Consider supporting me on Patreon to get exclusive benefits. Link in the description down below. Even a $3 pledge goes a long way. And for that amount, you can be on screen with these beautiful people here. Huge thank you to my top supporters, Sensei Krolon, Johnny, and Dre. Another big shout out to Trapham for the epic thumbnail as usual. If you want to talk to me and many others in my community, join my Discord. It's free for anyone to join. You can find the link in the About Me section of my Patreon page. Well, that's all folks, for now. Spice Boy, out.